This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. What's up? How's it going?
What's going on? We got a lot of West Coast games tonight, by the way. A lot of Wizards and Caps late night.
Oh, the Wizards are playing tonight? I'm totally tuned out of that one. And I'm not even joking. Who are they playing? I don't even know. They played the Kings.
They are playing the Lakers at 10:30.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Not interested this year, guys.
Your take on the
Wizards.
Wizards?
Out the Caps tonight, but I'm not checking out the Wizards. That's not happening.
Your take on the Wizards is that's a basketball franchise, and it starts and ends there.
No offense, just don't care this year. You guys are celebrating being the worst team in the league. With you better get that Cooper Flag guy, because if you don't, I have heard that this draft, and again, I'm still football brain. I'm full football brain this time around. Typically by this point I can turn it off, but full football brain. I've heard there were like 2 or 3 like franchise changing players this year. So they don't have to get number 1, but is what it is. Kind of
do when you're this bad.
I mean, I don't even want to see the Lakers from what I've heard about them these days. So that's like, it's a double whammy.
Well, I mean, who didn't see JJ Redick not working out? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like what a
shocker. Yeah. He invented basketball on ESPN sitting next to Woj. Okay, guys. Yeah.
We know LeBron works with coaches great all the time.
Yeah, you knew that was going to work out. When they were doing that podcast together and they wrote up 2 plays that everybody was like, oh my God, basketball geniuses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's get back to football brain. And
yes.
Maybe let's just put Detroit to bed with what was my favorite story of the weekend. And I got to admit, this one you're going to have to help me with, because I am at an age now where I'm not sure I totally understand these things and don't care to, kind of like the Wizards plan. I'm at an age where I don't totally get it. Okay. But anyway, so I saw LeAngelo Ball practice the Tweaker song he was going to sing at halftime.
Yeah,
the game. That was actually, I wasn't sure what that was, or again, I don't have TikTok, so the band doesn't bother me. Whether it's there or not, doesn't matter. Not in my world. Don't care. There's nothing to do with it. Sure. So one of the Ball brothers apparently is famous for this viral song that's come out.
Yes.
The Lions decided to have him do it at halftime. I actually saw him practice it before the rehearse it before the game, and then he did it, and now he started to get blamed for the Lions' loss. They're placing blame on his presence, like they're looking for anything,
Yes.
And like line, there was a Barstool line about it where they wrote about it, and I guess this other very famous rapper was like, I'm blaming him purposefully. I think partially because he's probably jealous that the song is taking off. And the other part is like, maybe he has a point that this guy has now cursed them. And there was a line in this piece that was like, maybe this guy, Cameron, has a point, because Detroit does have a lot of like great musicians, and they could have chosen from some of them, including, I didn't see Eminem there, but I heard he was there, but I didn't see him there. Bob Seger's from there. Famously, Kid Rock's from there. They didn't have him do it. He was probably busy at the inauguration. And then they go, and they could have gone the route of Insane Clown Posse. And sitting there going, let me see if I got this right. You're suggesting LeAngelo Ball may have cursed the Lions, or they may have gotten a little too big for their britches, or they're trying to be a little too cool for school, and that's maybe part of the reason why they lost. But they should have had Insane Clown Posse play halftime of the NFC divisional game on Fox, is what you wanted. That's what you wanted to happen.
I mean, I will say this. If you had told me a song was called Tweaker, I would have guessed Insane Clown Posse sang that song, not LiAngelo Ball. And
that's true.
I will defend this a little bit. I get much more Dan Campbell vibes from Insane Clown Posse than I do LiAngelo Ball. So I'm just saying,
100%.
Like, if Insane Clown Posse came out with a song called Bite Your Kneecaps Off, I think the whole crowd would have been into it. So
I think if Kid Rock showed up and shot a bunch of Bud Light cans, like that would have been a cool halftime show.
I mean, what I will say is this: one, fan of Tweaker, good song. I like it. It's catchy. I will say
I had never heard of it until then. When you're at a stadium and you can't hear it, like this is how old I am now. You know me, I'm pretty current. I had no clue what this was. And then someone had to tell me that's one of the Ball kids. I'm like, oh, well, look at that. Okay.
Yeah. No, this actually, I was prepped by this. One, I had heard the song. And then last week, there was a little bit of Caps news because Brandon Duhaime switched his goal song to it, and he hadn't scored in a long time. And then he scored a goal. He scored 2 goals at home. So they had to play it when he scored. And that was a little bit on like Caps Twitter was like, we need this guy to score now. And he did. So there was a little.
So LiAngelo Ball's song is not bad luck, is your point.
At least for Washington, this is what I was going to get to. It's ours now because Duhaime switched it, scored 2 goals. And in fact, one of the goals, it got changed to him. So they showed him on the Jumbotron, then played it. And then he scored, I want to say he scored an empty netter for the second one. But now I also heard that the Commanders, that they were playing it in post game after the Bucks game as well, which doesn't surprise me.
That's true. They were. Yes.
So Detroit kind of played into it, I think, a little bit. And I don't know. I don't know where the lines are being drawn here. I'm just telling you what I know. It seems like it's a Washington thing now. So Philly.
The stars are aligning in a certain way, in very mystical ways too, and now in very current ways. Like these things happen to the special teams. All the little nuggets of the story come in there. Like when we do the documentary of this season, LiAngelo Ball will now have to be interviewed for it.
I mean, like, I'm just saying, if they
the Caps,
if they do win the Super Bowl, like, is Tweaker going to be blasted, down the streets of DC? I don't know. Right. But
well, the left-hand up guys are pissed. They're like, come on.
Well, they're going to get their play too. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you had to be there for that too. That was, that feels like eons ago at this point. So I'm just saying Tweaker could be a part of it.
Well, I got another one. Andy's going to love that I did this. Okay. Andy, this is an Andy Poland special. This is the mystical stuff, old man stuff. But I didn't know about the Caps connection. Now that you mentioned it, I do remember they were playing that in the locker room after the Tampa win. I remember that. Okay. So Jayden Daniels can rewrite history here. No rookie quarterback has ever started the Super Bowl, let alone won it. So he's got a chance here. If they win this weekend, he'll start in the Super Bowl. A number of rookies got to their championship games before. I think the number's like 6 of them, but none of them have actually advanced past it. All right. So there's chance here.
There's a layer on the stats there too. The 5 that did it, it was like Roethlisberger and Flacco and a couple of others.
Sean King.
Mm-hmm. If you look up their scoring defense, they're all like top 3.
Right.
And Jayden's is like 18 or 19, like by far the worst scenario where it's not a defense carrying a team essentially. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's another, it's just another piece of evidence of this is the greatest rookie quarterback season we've ever seen. It might be the greatest season by any rookie, but like certainly of any rookie quarterback. And if they pull this off, there's just like, he's going to reset what it means to come into the league and be a rookie. And then there's this part of it. So you could argue, because there is a rookie quarterback that did win a championship before, it's Sammy Baugh. Sammy Baugh came to the Redskins in 1937. It's the year that they moved from Boston to Washington. He was a highly touted collegiate player, obviously, multi-sport player. He ended up turning out to be, if you go through his history, maybe with Jim Brown, like the greatest player in NFL history. Nobody would be allowed to do the things that he does now. But back then, 5 times he led the league in punting, multiple times he led the league in interceptions, and he led the league in passing multiple years. And also as a rookie, he did so. The numbers aren't going to wow you because they didn't throw the ball very much back then. In 11 games, the teams with like the most passing yards was like 1,300 for the entire season. So about 100 and something a game is what they threw for. And obviously it was a shorter season. But as a rookie, Sammy Baugh was drafted, came in, and won the NFL championship, beating George Halas's Bears. In the championship game, he threw for 355 yards, which is an absolutely absurd number that would back then in any game, because most teams threw the ball 5 to 10 times a game. Like that was it, right? That 355 number actually lasted until 2012 before any rookie threw for more yards in any playoff game ever, right? So that was Russell Wilson, 2012, when that happened. So here's where I think the weird stuff starts happening, okay? So Sammy Baugh, you could argue, actually had, for a quarterback, the best rookie season ever. He won a championship. This year, Jayden Daniels can kind of rewrite the modern NFL, and he could go and start a Super Bowl, potentially win a Super Bowl, and that, of course, would end all debates about who's had the best rookie quarterback season ever in the modern NFL. When did they last go to the Super Bowl? 1991, or the calendar year 1992. It's been 33 seasons since that happened, right? What number does Sammy Baugh wear?
That'd be number 33.
33. Andy, got you beat. That is the most stars aligned thing I think I've ever seen in my life. It's been 33 years since they've been to the Super Bowl. They have a quarterback that is changing literally everything about their franchise, not unlike the one that came in 1937 when the team moved and posted the best rookie season of any quarterback ever. Sammy Baugh, there is a ghost that is inside of Jayden Daniels wearing the Washington jersey, and now it's feeling like the stars are aligned. And I do believe we also need to invite LiAngelo Ball on the team plane.
The other part of this that I feel like the stars are aligning to is, think about what this year off the field has been too. They're going to return to RFK, it looks like they're going to move back into the city.
Yeah.
This seems to be aligning with that, it seems like they're getting all the way back to what they should be in terms of going back to RFK, getting new owners, all of it. That's just another feather in the cap that this is their year.
It's wild.
This is their year.
It is wild. As for the game at this point, and this is what we don't know, and I can't wait to hear about, and don't assume to get much information. What is Jalen Hurts' status?
Yep.
I've seen all the internet doctors who looked at his injury on video and obviously have never spoken to him or touched his knee and have no access to any of his MRIs or whatever he's going to do this week, but they all gave their opinion, and most came to a conclusion. He clearly didn't tear his ACL. He wouldn't have finished the game. He clearly did something to his knee, because they won't do a tush push, and then they look at the way it kind of bent and just kind of how he was kind of moving initially, and they went, it's one of two specific ligaments, PCL or MCL, and then they came down to he can play with these, but we'll see if he has a brace on and what his lateral movement is. But this is it. The game hinges on this, in my opinion. I can already feel the air being sucked out of the building if they say Kenny Pickett is starting, and then I can already hear the excuses that will start to build if that's what ends up happening, of which I will remind them that the last time they went to the Super Bowl happened to be the time when San Francisco was down to a third quarterback, and they changed the rules because the San Francisco was not capable of putting an able-bodied quarterback on the field for them that day after injuries occurred. But whatever, as of now, he's going to play. The question is, can he run? And I think we're going to have to find that out in real time, because I don't think they're going to announce that up front, like, hey, Jalen Hurts is going to play, but wink, wink, he can't run the zone read. We're going to find out in real time. Can he move laterally at all? And if he can't, he's a sitting duck. So I just this is the whole game to me, is what the status of his knee is.
The other side of this is that means the Eagles defense is going to have to try to step up, and they're going to try to play one of these close games. All of a sudden, it's actually, this game becomes a little bit, I'm not trying to count this before it happens, but it becomes a test of what they could be meeting in the Super Bowl too. The Bills defense has stepped up in these playoffs. The Chiefs defense has been amazing all year, so much so that that's their identity this season. That actually becomes kind of like a little test heading in there. And if Hurts cannot move like that, well, we've seen what this defense can do now with Lattimore on one side and Mikey on the other side. All of a sudden, it becomes a way more potent one if you have him standing there like a sitting duck.
The motto that they've run with all year, anyone, anytime, anywhere, right? I would add one more line to it this week, which is any type of game. This is going to be very different than the one that they played a couple days ago in Detroit. They have proven they can play low-scoring games.
Yep.
They have proven with Philadelphia they can play topsy-turvy, oh, God, we need to make up for whatever's happened that went bad games. They showed they can play in a track meet if they have to, because they were just in a game where the most points ever scored in a single quarter occurred. And so they won that quarter, and they were able to win that game. This one's going to be very different. Hurts being able to go, not go, or be marginalized in going only adds more to my feeling of this is something in the teens. Like, without Cosme this week, I have a hard time figuring out how do they handle the interior defensive line, and secondarily, how do they run the ball on them without it being Jayden putting on the cape and running around? Like, is there going to be, and I know they're going to stick to it because they're going to stick to it, they're going to try to run the ball. I knew they'd have more success than they had in recent weeks against Detroit because of all the injuries that they have. But this team's different. They've already had a hard time running the ball against them. They've already had a hard time with that interior defensive line. How are they going to be able to do it? The idea that Washington's going to be able to manufacture a lot of points here doesn't feel like the script to me. If Hurts is beat up and he can't move laterally, then I think Joe Witt and company just go, we're going to take our chances with Lattimore and Sanders still on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in the hopes that Hurts can't scramble and can't extend plays. So we're just going to pile up on the box and do the best we possibly can to limit Saquon Barkley, which all reads low scoring, who makes less mistakes type of game, and defensive battle, field position battle, like first one to 20 probably wins. That's what this feels like we're heading into this weekend.
No, it's 100% what I've thought too. If you look at the Eagles scores all year long too, I mean, they've got a couple blowouts, but you look at how they've I made the comment earlier, how they kind of play to their competition a little bit. Like the game I always go back to was that game against the Browns off of the bye, where like they only scored, I think, close to 20 points and the Browns scored like 14 points. They're playing that same brand of football that the Chiefs are. They're trying to play into their defense's hands a little bit here, not screw up. I mean, it's funny. That's what both of these teams seem to have been hanging their hat on. I would say the Eagles, though, have the best running back in the league. So we've seen some of those scores get crazy. But outside of that, they have also not been trying to play this kind of flashy type of offense. Not at all. And that's my joke with the Eagles is in the fourth quarter, Sirianni just realizes, all right, we've got Saquon. Just start handing him the ball a little bit more. And so that's a good game plan. And I'm not knocking that, but that's what it is.
They've lost once in 4 months. It's worked out for them. So, but that's what I think. That's where I think it's heading right now. One other thing real quick before we head to a break. Lamar Jackson in leaving yesterday, and again, Baltimore, I think, beat themselves again. It'd be a tough task to beat Buffalo no matter what up there. But still, in the end, it was their mistakes. Drop pass by Mark Andrews at the end of the game, the really bad 2 turnovers in the first half. Andrews had a fumble in the game. It's their own fault again. Like, I think those are the toughest ones to lose when you know you're the reason why you lost. And because it's not like a couple of years ago when the Chiefs and the Bills had that crazy back and forth crazy game. Somebody had to win and somebody had to lose. Nobody lost it. Like, just somebody had to win, somebody had to lose. The Ravens over the last couple of years seem to be their own worst enemy. Last year it was they forgot they run the ball, like that's actually what they do. And this year was mistakes. I mean, it's the only reason. And he says today it's inevitable that we're going to win the Super Bowl. And I don't know about that. Like, Pat Mahomes isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Josh Allen isn't going anywhere anytime soon. If they were to get this far, our guy isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And then we don't know what's coming next. Like, you never know what's like. What if Caleb Williams becomes a really great player? What if Drake May becomes a really great player? Denver, all of a sudden, with a really good coach and what seems to be a good quarterback, like all of a sudden, none of it's inevitable. None of it. And I'm sure I understand why he wants to say that to himself, but off of like them beating themselves to hear him say it's inevitable, I think I would buy hearing something like that from him today. If it was off of the Bills just beat them in a tight game, they didn't make any mistakes. It just happened to be two of the best teams played each other. Someone had to win and someone had to lose. That's not what's happened the last 2 years. Like, they could have at least advanced the AFC Championship if not for their own mistakes, and they should have been in the Super Bowl last year, certainly if not for their own ridiculous game plan and mistakes. So, like, for Lamar, if that's what you need to tell yourself, fine. But I think that's a weird word to use the day after a game where you guys blew it and not really the Bills beat you.
Not only that, you say that, and the quarterbacks you mentioned Allen, Mahomes, maybe Drake May becomes really good. You didn't even mention Burrow, who's in their division, who didn't get in the playoffs this year, who we've seen carried them to a Super Bowl once already and has been very, very good. And I never put the Ravens in those same category as those three guys, Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow, because remember, I told you this last year and even the previous year, those three franchises actually, they can't lose their minds losing to each other. They're all very, very good. But I haven't even put the Ravens in that category yet because they haven't been able to take care of business against those teams. I'll bring this back to a hockey conversation like we were talking with the Lions last week. You can tell me inevitable, but there was a day and age where Ted Leontis said, I can't wait for Ovechkin to win Stanley Cups, plural. Yeah. And we got real late, all the way up to 2018. And that win was amazing. But you and I agreed when they won that Stanley Cup, it was more relief than it was like a jubilation of a celebration of them finally doing it. It was like, whoo, thank goodness this guy won one. You can't throw that word around and just assume you're going to do it in any sport, let alone this one, let alone in the AFC, where you are stacked at quarterbacks now, Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Yeah, in his case, it's like he's an all-time great. I hope he's right.
Sure. No, totally. Absolutely. But
we'll see. That feels a little Ovechkin where you're like, here's a guy who's kind of redefined the position. It's kind of crazy. He'll never hoist the Lombardi trophy. Like the same thing I felt about Ovechkin all those years where I'm like, it's just, the world's not right if that guy's name's not on the cup at some point.
Right.
Like, it's just, it's not right. All right, let me take a quick break. Greg Watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. You sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now I'm saving more money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Unstoppable. Discover the inspiring true story about Anthony Robles, who defied every expectation to become a national wrestling champion in Unstoppable, a new original movie from Amazon MGM Studios and director William Goldenberg, evoking the excitement and camaraderie of classic sports dramas and thrilling wrestling matches. Unstoppable features an all-star ensemble cast, including Jarrell Jerome, Jennifer Lopez, Don Cheadle, Michael Pena, and Bobby Cannavale. Watch Unstoppable now, exclusively on Amazon Prime Video.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Welcome back. Each and every week, I get an opportunity to sit down with my booth mate, London Fletcher, great linebacker, should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, hopefully soon. And we get to relive the games that we just called. This one is one to remember. We've waited a generation to see the Commanders get this far into the playoffs. 33 years it's been since Washington advanced to the NFC Championship. It ended the longest, what was current drought by any NFC team to reach this level of the playoffs. The new team with the longest such drought in the NFC is the Dallas Cowboys. The longest such drought overall now in the NFL belongs to the Miami Dolphins and the Cleveland Browns at 32 seasons in a row. So for Washington, it's time to once again ask a really big question that I think me and London have kind of already come to the answer to, which is, are they going to be satisfied? And I believe the answer is no. Like, along the way, there have been all these times where you can go, look at what you've achieved. Isn't that kind of enough? Or, you know how happy everybody is. Aren't you satisfied with what you've done? And I just do not get the sense from the locker room, and haven't to this point, that they're ever really ready to kind of stick their head out from under the sand and go, all right, it's award season. I've never felt that from them, and I wouldn't expect it to happen this week too. It's kind of the perfect storm for them, because the last thing that they're going to want to do is have their season end against an arch rival, a team that they've already played twice. I have a full expectation that we're going to get the best out of them again, and we'll see how the chips fall. This is going to be a tough game against Philadelphia, but we are in unusual territory. And so I had the opportunity to catch up with London in our podcast, The Booth Review, that comes out every Monday, where we get to break down everything that we saw and look ahead to the next game. And fortunately, we are looking ahead to the next game. You can get the Booth Review wherever you get your podcasts, commanders.com, Commanders app. Check it out on YouTube. Here was a piece of the conversation that we had about the Lions win and looking ahead to Philly. First time since I was in college, London, the Commanders are in the NFC Championship game. This is wild.
You're old, too, so that was a long time ago. Man, you talk about wild. Who could have imagined a year ago that we'd be playing in the NFC Championship game against our hated rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, winner advances to the Super Bowl? All this happened in the first year of the Adam Peters, Dan Quinn regime. Man, this is just don't wake me, I'm dreaming type moment.
Yeah. There's so many odd synergies that are going on that I want to get to. It's almost mystical in some ways about what's happening here. But I want to start with Detroit and what they did in Detroit, where they had a short week. They're playing the 1 seed. The 1 seed's got a historically great offense. But by the time Friday came around, and I think this is important to point out because you were up here, I was up here. This team has never been satisfied with anything they've done. I know everybody, including myself, because I end up in the locker room asking Dan Quinn about this stuff like, where's the satisfaction of what you have accomplished? Because it's unusual to go this far, this quickly with a new group like this, especially with a rookie quarterback. And he always brushes it off and says, what's next? We're focused on the next thing. They were very businesslike. And by the time we got around to Friday, and I had a chance to speak with Coach Quinn, and I know you did too, what I heard from them in how they were going to try to at least slow down the Lions, I had a tremendous amount of confidence in what was going to happen on Saturday night, and I'm sure you did as well.
No, absolutely. And it started, like, you see a lot of people will look at, hey, we were an underdog going into that game, people outside of that building. But the sense that I got is that they didn't view themselves as underdogs. They view themselves, or they went in there with the mentality like, we expect to win this football game. We're not going in there just, oh, hey, we'll be happy with competing against the Lions, maybe making a close game. No, they went in there with the mentality, we're going to win this football game. I told a couple people on Saturday at the game, like before the game started, like, don't be surprised when it happens. When we beat these guys, don't be surprised because this is what they expect to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the offense in a minute. I mean, I really think like there was an overestimation by and this has happened all over the league. And I think partially it's because there weren't a lot of expectations on Washington. They weren't in a lot of high profile games. A lot of people saw the highlights, saw the close finishes, like saw highlights of Jayden, heard he's really good. But because he's a rookie, because this is new, because Washington hasn't won very much in recent years, everyone looked at this like it's a cute story, but they hadn't really paid attention. And we've been in the booth every week, and we're following this every week. And this is a team that this is not an accident that they're where they are. They execute at a high level. They control the clock at an extraordinary high level. Their quarterback has been ahead of the curve and amazing, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about him, obviously. But this team is poised, resilient, has chemistry, egoless, and the way that they execute and handle all of these game situations said to me all along, they're not going to get blown out for sure. The only question I had was, would they score enough? That was the only question I had.
And that was one thing you mentioned, you didn't mention was confidence. They also had confidence. And the reason why I say confidence being a part of that, and the confidence came from preparation. You mentioned the late game situations, all those different scenarios. Those you're confident in those moments because of the preparation that you put in. When you've got the 10,000 hours, so to speak, of preparation in whatever craft or trade that you partake in, these guys have the kind of the 10,000 hours of preparation in late game scenarios, going on a roll, anybody, anytime, anywhere mentality, all those types of things. And when you add all those things together, and I understood why you said, hey, will we be able to score enough against these guys? Because going into that game, Detroit, the most explosive offense in the league, highest scoring offense in the league, had some guys, especially in the running game, that can harm us. Our run defense had not been up to par. But when I personally did my study on the Lions, I said, man, and Jared Goff in particular, I said, looking at this game, we need to put it all on Jared Goff. And by that, like, you're not going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs, but if we can limit his explosive plays, and we didn't do a great job of that, especially in the first half, but if we can force it to where Jared Goff has to be the guy that leads them and throwing the football around, he's going to give us some opportunities. That was my mentality, and that's how it ended up playing out in that ball game. And I'm sure the coaching staff, because they have far more resources than I do in terms of their studies, all the analytics, and how they want to view a guy and what things that they see can particularly bother a quarterback and things like of that nature. They saw those things as well and said, you know what, let's put it on Jared Goff, and we can force him into some mistakes, and he did.
Like the note that I saw going in that really gave me a lot of confidence, and I'm going to tell you the line that Dan Quinn said to me on Friday going into the game or Thursday that gave me a real lot of confidence about how things were going to go. Dan Quinn is head coach in Atlanta or defensive coordinator in Dallas, played Jared Goff 5 times and went 4-1 against him. One of those was a playoff game. And granted, this is a long time ago. Dan Quinn was the head coach in Atlanta, and he beat what was one of the best offenses in the NFL, Sean McVay, Jared Goff, Rams, beat them in the playoffs. The more recent ones that I think are close is he's the defensive coordinator in Dallas. Detroit played them back-to-back years, lost both of those games, and Jared Goff had 1 touchdown and 6 turnovers in those games.
Oh, wow.
He's got this guy's number in some way. I think to your point, I think they had a very good feel of what makes him really uncomfortable. And what he said to me on Thursday going in, he wouldn't be overly specific about what they were going to do, but what he said was, we're not going to let them play the way they want to. So I wonder how that sits with you now after watching them control the Lions to the degree that they controlled them.
No, it lines up exactly with what I thought. I thought one thing about Jared Goff, he's not, if you can force him to hold on to the football a lot longer or a little bit longer. And I was looking at some stats, and it was him versus man coverage as opposed to versus zone coverage. And I don't have my notes there, but he was, far more effective against man coverage than he was when you played zone coverage. It was he was minus 23% or minus, almost maybe even 30% in the differentiation between the two, man versus zone coverage. So I figured, hey, maybe we'll play a little bit more zone. And also with zone coverage, it forces the quarterback to have to read it out. Jared Goff is not a guy who's going to, buy time in the pocket, scramble, do other things. He's going to sit in the pocket for the most part. So if you can get him off the spot, also force him to hold the football a tad bit longer, allow our pass rush to maybe get some pressure on him. I felt like that was going to be the better approach to him as opposed to playing a lot of man coverage, because he thrived. I think he may have been, if he wasn't the best guy against man coverage, he was maybe 2 or 3 in terms of when teams play man coverage against him and his effectiveness.
And I think everybody sees the execution and the players and the plays Jayden made, and we'll get to them. But the preparation in these first 2 playoff games, the coaching staff deserves a tremendous amount of credit. They took on 2 top 5 offenses. They were able to beat both of them. They were able to take both of them out of the game that they wanted to play. And with Goff, what I thought was very interesting, to your point about them playing more zone, actually Washington had been trending to play a lot more man down the stretch of the season. So they are showing that they are capable of playing very different versions of the way they need to play week to week, like they talk about. They're able to access a game plan, produce a game plan, and execute it on the field, even if it's not what they're showing week after week. They are prepared for whichever opponent they're about to take on, and it showed up again against the 1 seed the other night.
Oh man, it really did. And I thought the game plan, the defensive game plan, Joe Witt, I thought he called a great game. There was I've had a chance to maybe get through half of the game, rewatching the game, and just especially it's hard to see all of the stuff in real time as we're calling the games. You don't have enough time to see everything, but there was some stuff like, oh dang, I missed this coverage, I missed this variation. They had some very coverages variations that they went to their zone coverages, whether it's a cover 2 rotation or cover 3 rotation. Some unique ways and things and ways that they hadn't done it before. One time, Frankie Louvu ended up being the cover 2 corner in one of the scenarios. And maybe they did this before in the season. I don't recall it, where we had Louvu dropping out and being a cover 2 corner. And I mean, they really had a great game plan, and it caused Jared Goff a lot of problems.
They got 5 turnovers. I want to go through a couple of them. So I think the game plan that they talked about to try to unsettle Goff showed itself up in the Quan Martin pick. And then he is. I can only imagine what he was thinking. We got to talk to him in the locker room. I mean, you probably picture things like this when you're a kid, a playoff pick 6. And he even admitted to us. He was like, I couldn't believe the ball was in my hands. And all of a sudden I think like it's an out of body experience because it wasn't like it wasn't even like he jumped an out route and had like an open lane. He like navigated through traffic to get to the end zone. It was pretty wild.
Hey, and by the way, we had a great call on that pick six. So on that particular play, this is talking about doing some different things. So they only rushed 3, and they play cover 2. They got John Allen dropping as kind of like a shallow hole player, hole defender, and they play that cover 2, and it forces Jared Goff to try to fit a layer of throw over zone coverage, deep zone coverage droppers, and inaccurate throws. They talk about tips and overthrows. That's where you got to get an interception. But then the ability of Quan once he made that interception, and he broke some tackles, man. He became a great run game returner. We got to ask him if he got a little background in his history about returning kicks or being an offensive guy. But just a great game plan, great execution in that scenario.
There's so many like links back to the past where you feel like this is destiny. Like the last time Washington had a pick six in a playoff game was Darrell Green did it. Darrell Green happened to have, it was his famous game in 1988, his punt return against Chicago that helped Washington win that classic game en route to a Super Bowl. Well, guess what? Like I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm going to draw because I had a historical
it was
footnote.
the Lions.
Oh, no. It was the first time they'd won on the road in the divisional round since the Darrell Green game. Like there's all these really strange destiny-type synergies that are like happening to this team right now.
If I remember reading correctly, didn't D Green also have a interception return?
He did
against the Lions. Interception return against the Lions.
That was the last pick six.
That was the last pick six. Yeah.
Right, and then of course his famous punt return is the game they won in Chicago. That was the last time they'd actually won on the road in the divisional round in the playoffs. So there's like all these really strange ghosts of the past that have really been popping up throughout the year. Like how many times early in the season were we mentioning, especially when it came to like Jayden and the things he was doing, not since 1991, not since World War II, not since this, not since that. This started early where they've been kind of rewriting the franchise's history. I'll get to one that's really eerie and a little quarterback.
Not since you were in high school.
Right.
You said college.
I was in college when they beat the Bills in the Super Bowl, but I was in high school when they played the Eagles the one and only time that they played them in the playoffs, the 1990 postseason that they won. And it's funny, a friend of mine that I went to high school with, we went to that game. We bought tickets. We did. We bought tickets because back then, I don't know if you could still do this, but back then it was like a little known fact that the road team had access to tickets. You'd have to go to the box office, though, to buy them. But I don't think most people knew that. So me and my friend went to old RFK Stadium and bought tickets to the game at the Vet to see Philadelphia play Washington in the wild card playoff game. And we went together. And so he like texted me. He was like, he doesn't know I'm the voice of the team, said we should go again because we did that. And I know. And I go, what? I was like, do you not know what I do now? Yeah.
I was about to say, what has he been living under a rock?
I don't know.
Does he not have internet? Does he not? Well, he's not on social. He's not following the team.
I don't know. Like that was the weird part of it. I'm like, isn't it really cool? Because he's like, I'm going to go. Do you remember going? I'm like, of course I remember going. And like, I have all these memories of this. First, I didn't think I was going to get out of that stadium alive because we ended their season and those people were not happy. And then secondarily, that was back in the day before there was instant replay, before they overturned calls. There was this very famous non-call on a fumble that didn't go Philadelphia's way. And I'll never forget this. In the stadium, they showed a replay that looked like it was a fumble. I believe it was Ernest Biner. And it looked like it was a fumble. But on the TV broadcast, you could tell for sure it wasn't. But they didn't show the TV broadcast one in the stadium. They wanted the crowd to believe that the Eagles had been robbed that day.
Oh man, I'm surprised that you're still here today, Brad. Against those fans, I had a buddy of mine, just to kind of take you back a little bit and give fans a true perspective of the Eagles fans and how they are. A buddy of mine went to a game. This is back when I was playing in Philly. We played the Eagles there. And, on the road team, we don't get the best seats as a visiting team players. So I get him seats, and we end up beating the Eagles. Now, during the game, they're talking crazy junk to my buddy. I think they were winning majority of the game. We end up winning late, turning around and winning. And they're talking all kind of junk to him. So once it was apparent we were going to win, he starts giving it back to him. He says a lady takes like this she had a big thing of beer. It throws it on him. Throws it on him. So, he's also been drinking, so he feels pretty good. He said he had one, and he threw his back on her. He said they literally, about 20 people chased him out of the stadium. He's running through the golf course.
I think we all have stories like that. In fact, that might be a nice segment for later this week. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, DM me, or just shoot me a note. What is your bet up to Philadelphia through the years as a Commanders fan? Because this one's going to be a doozy. You can check out the entire Booth Review podcast wherever you get your podcasts, on the Commanders YouTube channel, commanders.com, or the Commanders app. Back after this, Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Snoop Benny Ben goes to Chicago. So the Bears interviewed 1,000 people and landed on the guy everybody said they were going to hire in December. So, all right. And this makes more sense, honestly, than him going to Vegas. That made no sense to me. Maybe they used it as leverage. I guess Absolutely. The agent and him just told the Bears, fork over the real money, and he got it. Good for him. He gets a prodigy quarterback, so that made a lot more sense than going to the Raiders too. So Ben and his agents did a really good job to get the most out of Chicago, scared him enough to get the money. I guess I don't know what this means for Lance Newmark now, because Ryan Poles picked him. Ryan Poles was empowered to pick him. If Ben Johnson maneuvers to get Poles out, it probably won't be this year. It'd be next year, which would just be another sign of dysfunction, honestly. If you're going to let the GM hire the coach only to have a turncoat stab him in the back and have him leave the next year, that's not set up for success. So not that I don't want Lance Newmark to get all the opportunities in the world that he can, but this is semi-good news to me that we may keep the gang back together, at least on that end, for another year.
This, once again, I don't know how Chicago fans are reacting. I'm sure they're probably happy to have Ben Johnson. He's very innovative and all that. But I have to wonder if they're asking themselves the same question of when they had your boy Eberflus there last year, when they were like, why are we not clearing house and having a full reset with everything? I have to think there's a part of the fan base and the media there that are going, why are we doing this overlapping regime thing again? Clear house. But hey, whatever. You're the Bears. You guys do you. Right, exactly.
They have a really good roster with a prodigy quarterback. I want them to be stumbling over themselves the whole time because, if they get it together, they have a chance to open a window here, obviously. They have a really good roster, and I believe what will end up being a really, really good quarterback. They should be formidable. If they can't figure out how to set up the structure to be rowing the boat the same way, though, that's better for us and everybody in the NFC.
Yep. No, and here's the thing, too. I think Ben Johnson took this job because there's a bunch of pieces on that offense that are all really good. The one thing with Johnson that I've been saying the whole time is it's easy to call up all of those plays in Detroit when you got first-round picks all over the place on that offense, including the offensive line. So in Chicago, he's got that built in. He doesn't have the offensive line, but he has a very nice base to work around with that offense. If he can't figure out how to get that offense going, nobody can.
Yeah, that is the big difference. So the Lions' offensive line's outstanding. The Bears one is not. So that's where the work needs to be put in to figure that out. Congratulations to Ryan Day, who gets to shut everybody up. After the Michigan game, everybody had him fired, including the entire state of Ohio. It wasn't just Stephen A. Smith or Pat McAfee or whoever who was yelling for it. The entire state of Ohio wanted to kick him out en masse, chase him out of the street pitchfork style. And he turned around and he colored that beard and he went back into work and he got those guys to play really well. And Notre Dame, they're just, listen, I think that guy's a really good coach. that team's not nearly as talented as Ohio State. And, the final score showed that in the end of the day.
No, I mean, what was the joke? You lose to Michigan, you better win the national championship or you're going
right.
to get fired. And he did. You can't hate on that.
He did.
I mean, he did exactly what everyone said he had to do to keep his job. So good for him.
I want him to go on Feinbaum show or First Take and moon them. I just that's what I think he should do. I think he should do that. So congratulations, Ohio State, winning the national championship last night. Tonight we get Wizards apparently, and Caps versus Oilers. No McJesus. He got suspended. See, I'm not total football brain. I'm aware that happened. So the Caps are in Edmonton tonight, but their best player's not playing.
Yeah, no, exactly right. The Caps have been playing a very defensive game. This is going to help them out. It's going to be lowish scoring again, probably like a 3-2, 2-1 type game here. I don't know who's in net as of when we're recording now, but Logan Thompson won #1 star of the week last week in the NHL. I would be shocked if they don't ride him a little bit here on this road trip just to keep getting him those #1 reps. So Lindgren is officially off IR. Let's see who starts. That's the #1 storyline in tonight's game.
Okay, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram Watson Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital.